So I will have to dig into that later, and maybe I'll have to do this again later, redo it. But that's fine. It's whatever we got to do. So I am going to go ahead and jump into this, and let me set this up a little bit. So first of all, my name is Jonathan League. I am a family therapist and I am an addictions counselor. And I have a lot of videos on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe to this channel, you can see many of these playlists. I have ones on parenting, ones on addiction, and just various mental health, but kind of family focused information, just straight from a therapist. And the whole idea behind it is I want to provide you with knowledge and I want to provide you with encouragement to be able to handle whatever situation that you are dealing with. But today, I'm going to be breaking down a video that I recently put up on YouTube, and um, the video was actually, what did I title that? Let me flip this back over here. Where is it? There it is. Will the addict in my life hurt me again? And it's basically talking about boundaries and boundaries in relationships, um, and I wanted to break that down and get into a little bit more detail. Um, so the idea for this talk really comes about um, through many conversations I've had with my clients. And I'll give you an example. Like there was this one woman I was talking to. She was a wife, and her husband was an addict, and but he had been doing really, really well. He would go these long periods of time without using, and then there would be a moment where it was like he'd go off the deep end. He'd start drinking, then it'd be drugs and all kinds of drugs, and he would disappear for days. And it was just really heartbreaking for her and devastating and very hurtful when he would do this. And she would often say, is it me? Is there something I need to be doing better? And but her question to me, like many clients, was asking about time. Like, how long does he need to be clean before I can know he's not going to hurt me? I know he's not going to have this happen again. And there was another similar conversation not too long ago I was having with another woman, but she was a mother and it was her adult son, and it involved a lot of money. He would come to her for money or to move in for a while. And this would be after he'd been clean for a little while. He's like, Mom, I haven't used for 30 days. I'm, however many days clean. You can trust me now. I'm okay. And so she would give him more money. She had co-signed for a car at one point, and then another time had let him move in, only to have him relapse again and go back to the use and back to the substances. And it was the same type of question. It was focused on time, and like, how long does it take before they're in a place where they're not going to use again? And so I want to go over 3 points related to this just general idea of when can you trust again? When do you know that someone is kind of past their addiction, maybe, or they're not going to use again, they're not going to relapse again. Um, and and one other thing before I get into these points, kind of the general theme is I see people, usually spouses, loved ones of someone with an addiction, they're getting focused on the wrong thing, right? And they start losing themselves in the relationship. They lose themselves in this process, and that they don't have a very good sense of what they can control and what they can do. And it's all kind of waiting on pins and needles and anxiety and fears around the addict, and they feel in a very powerless position. And that's what I want to address about what you need to be aware in that time. So the first point that I want to go over is about time. You don't want to focus just on time, as in how long a person's been clean. Is it 30 days? Is it 90 days? Is it a year? Is it 10 years? Um, and there is some logic behind it, right? There's some science behind it, and just common sense. The longer a person has gone without using, the more they're accustomed to a life without using, right? They've learned how to cope in many different situations, many different times of year, and they can become stronger, because of that time that has passed. And then, there's some science around it too, that I don't think I'll get into right now, but, like the 30 days, the 90 days, the year, basically the longer they go, the better the odds are. But that's not the only factor, because I know, um, very directly, very personally, addicts who have been sober for a year. They've been clean for 5 years. And in some of the really sad situations, where it's 15 years, 20 years, and they still go back. They have a relapse and they break down. So time can't be the only measure, which brings me to the second thing is you want to focus more on their behavior, and behavior in a couple of ways, right? Uh, like, are they maintaining the things they did in the very beginning to get clean, right? And to get sober in the first place. And a lot of times, most always, they have to establish very healthy patterns, right? Other ways of coping with their stress and maybe their past trauma, and just their habits. And so they develop these healthy patterns and coping mechanisms, and, as long as those are being maintained, that's a really good sign that this person is taking care of themselves. And the more time goes by and they're in those healthy patterns, you can feel more confident. But when those behaviors change, they start going back to their old patterns, their old unhealthy patterns, hanging around the friends that aren't good for them to hang around, going to the places they shouldn't be going, not doing the self-care things. Maybe they're not going to their groups. Uh, they're not having that spiritual practice in their life, or whatever those things were. They've stopped that and they're gravitating to those unhealthy patterns. That's a big warning sign, right? And so what we want is, to see that that person is maintaining those healthy patterns. And I will tell you, there's two things that really stand out in the behavior change. One is just in general a sudden behavior change. They're going back to those unhealthy things, and the other is secrecy. Right? They tend to get very quiet. They tend to be more secretive and withdrawing from communication, not talking about what's going on, and that's a big warning sign as well. So yeah, those are some warning signs, and more of what you want to focus on. But let's get into the third point, because that's really the whole point of this talk. And it's really, instead of focusing on time, uh, you want to focus on your boundaries, right? Your healthy boundaries that you have in your relationship, whatever relationship that is, with an addict, right? And there's really some very important things that happen when you have healthy boundaries with your addict, and why that's necessary. Uh, First of all, when you have healthy boundaries, it gives you a clear sense of control, right? It defines what you control and what you don't control, what's your responsibility and what's not your responsibility. And in essence, you're not responsible for the other person. And that goes with like anyone in your life, right? You're not, it's not up to you whether or not they use or not. That is their choice. Their self-care is not up to you, it is up to them. And so it helps you focus on, okay, I don't control this person. I'm not responsible for them, but I am responsible for who I am to them, right? How I relate to them and how I communicate. And so it helps you have a sense of, okay, I need to focus on me. And then, in when you are focusing on you, you are in kind of your power zone. You're in control. When you're focused on someone else that you don't control, you're like literally out of control. You're in an out of control zone. Um, so The other thing that boundaries do that is very, very crucial, especially when you have someone in your life that's struggling with an addiction, is the boundaries actually provide support. Because just because you see, just because an addict has made a change to their behavior, they've stopped using, right? That doesn't mean that they're still not struggling. And it's very, very common, especially early on or in moments of high stress and things like that, that someone who has been battling addiction is going to really be struggling. They're going to have moments of some intense struggle. When they're struggling, they're more prone to those temptations. But when the person they live with, when the person that they love and they care about has very clear boundaries, and let me take a moment and just describe what those boundaries, what I mean by clear boundaries. A clear boundary defines what is okay and what is not okay, right? What you're going to put up with, what you're not going to put up, how life is going to look, and how it's not going to look, right? It's being very clear about that. And when someone has communicated that and in a loving way, but has basically said, nope, I am not going to tolerate this kind of behavior. I'm not going to be okay with that. And I'm going to speak up for myself. When they do that, that can be very supportive for the struggling addict or alcoholic, um, or whatever addiction they have, because it takes away the option. They see a strong person and they know, hey, this isn't going to be tolerated. And many times that's the extra support they need to say, okay, I can't go back to that old way. It's not worth my relationship. It's not worth the pain. So healthy boundaries really provide effective support. And one of the coolest things with boundaries, when you have healthy boundaries, is it provides peace, right? It allows you to be at peace because you are focused on what you control yourself, right? And you've provided the best support you can by having those healthy boundaries, and you've already established what you're going to do. Because the healthy boundaries, this is what's okay, this is what's not okay. And if you cross that boundary, if you cross that line, here's what I'm going to do. Right. And there's a way to enforce that. And when you're in that position of confidence and that secure boundary, you don't have to worry about the person all the time. Right. You don't have to be on pins and needles. Like, what are they going to do? Because you're focused on what you're going to do. And that's just a wonderful place to be in, to have that kind of peace. Uh, Now, there's another piece to boundaries. Boundaries are really, like I said, about ourselves, right? They're about you in this case. And to have healthy boundaries requires that you speak up for yourself, that you have a sense of what is okay and how you are treated and what is in your life. And to be able to have that sense, you need to value yourself. You need to care about yourself. You need to see yourself as important, and that you're worth it, right? And that you're not worth being treated this other way. And so that is an area of growth for you, is to be able to work on believing in yourself, believing in your own value, and then letting that show in the boundaries that you show and how you interact with the people that you love and you care about and all that. So uh, that's um, that's what this video is about, and I linked it um, in the description in there. So if you look at that, that's a little bit more detail, and I encourage you to watch that video because it breaks down those points in a very uh, succinct way. So, like always, if you want more information, there's a lot more videos, so you can subscribe. You can keep checking back in because there's going to be more videos. And if you have questions, if you have specific things that you would like to be covered or addressed, feel free to put that in there as well, because that's what I'm doing and that's what I'm providing. So, hey, I hope you have a good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. And I will talk to you again soon. Thank you.